So, good afternoon. This is going to be super interactive. I know it's the last session here. You probably had a super long day, but I have to admit, you have decided to attend the absolute best session in the conference with the absolute best panel in the whole world. So we are so happy that you came. We do not want you to feel like you're just sitting here and we're talking at you. We're going to have some ways for you to interact with us. We definitely want to hear back from you. So we'll be monitoring the chat. You'll hear a lot of great conversation, and we want you to feel like you're a part of this as opposed to us just presenting. So we want to welcome you. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the absolute best panel discussion of the whole entire conference with the absolute best panelists in the whole entire country. So if all the panelists that are here can just send a great virtual wave to our whole entire audience that's out there, we really want to just say hello, 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 and welcome, welcome, welcome to the diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion. So just to be clear, before we get started, we wanted to just give you some information about DE&I before we even get started. That's going to set the framework for our conversation, and we'll get to that in just one second. I do want to give a couple housekeeping reminders. One, please keep your cameras off, and if you can remain muted unless you're asking a question or you have something to say, please keep your camera off so everyone can have a great experience during this workshop. Also, this session is being recorded, so I hope you're camera ready because we really tried to get camera ready there for you. An email will be sent to you on how to access the recording. And if you have any PDHs, a survey and certificate will be available on the HOVA app or website. If you have any questions, please, please, please definitely place them in the chat. And because this is the last session, but it's the absolute best session of the whole entire conference, the absolute best panelists in the whole entire world, universe, earth, even beyond, we're going to have the raffle that will take place that you all had the, I guess, the ability to participate in. Hopefully you participated in that. You can click on the homepage from the app and still get inside that raffle because you will be entering to win a $100 Amazon gift card. We even give away prizes in our session. So this is the absolute best session in the whole entire world with the absolute best panelists, and we have them in the whole entire world too. So we have them here. So we are super excited. Again, this is going to be interactive, wonderful, hilarious. We're going to talk about some really great topics that can hopefully help you in your organization, help you in any type of community activities you're involved in, because we have the absolute best workshop in the whole entire conference with the absolute best panelists. Look at Laura's face. She's the absolute best panelist in the whole entire world. So with those housekeeping issues, our presentation is going to come up and then we'll get started. So if you feel as if you're in the absolute best session in the whole entire world, that'll be the first thing. Throw it in the chat. Throw it in the chat of how excited. I hope we live up to BB's hype. We absolutely are going to live up to that. You know, Angie, come on now. We're the absolute what? Best.
The best. We got
absolute. It. I bet if anybody else had a session that started off like this, then I'll pay you the $100 gift card. But they didn't, because we have the absolute best session with the absolute best panelists in the whole entire world. So thank you so much. Again, we're going to start with framing our conversation. So we're going to set that foundation. As an engineer, I have to lay a great, strong foundation for us to move forward. So diversity is expressed in a myriad of different terms and terminology, but it includes race and ethnicity, gender identities, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, language, culture, your national origin, religious communities, age, disability status, political perspectives. That's how we're going to frame this diversity. When we talk about equity, we're talking about working actively working. That means we're actually doing something to challenge and respond to biases, harassment, discriminations, and you're committing yourself to the policy of equal opportunity for all persons, for all individuals, for them not to be discriminated against on the case of race or gender, national origin, marital status, your sex, your sexual orientation, your gender identity, your gender expression, your disability, your religion, your height, your weight, your veteran status. So much stuff is under that umbrella. And then when we talk about inclusion, we are going to be talking in the mindset, in the framework of deliberately pursuing efforts to ensure that the spaces that we're a part of are welcomed for all different perspectives and are respectfully heard when individuals feel like they have a sense of belonging, hence the word inclusion. So why are we here? Why did you come to the absolute best session with the absolute best panelists? I want to start off with the purpose, the process, and the payoff. We have to have that, or this is all in vain. So the purpose that we're here, I want you to understand, we want you to understand the range of issues from all different type of populations. When you look at the pipeline from high school to your collegiate career to your professional career, we're going to be able to kind of tie in all of that and connect all those dots for you. So we want to talk about those organizational challenges. What are you doing now? What do you need to do? And we're going to be talking about culture. That is the purpose of why you're here, the process. So what is our process going to be for today? We're going to be doing some storytelling. Yes, storytelling. So it's not once upon a time, but it's going to be close. Or picture it, Sicily, 1918. You know, we're going to be doing some great, magnificent storytelling, some questions and answers, some polls for you to get involved and engage with us. And then also the payoff for this is for you to be able to have some resources and some continued conversations with some ideas of how to make your spaces better. So who are we? Who are these absolute best panelists in the whole entire world, right? So we have Lane, we have Laura, we have Angie, Sarah, myself, Barb Dunlap. I'm gonna let everybody else tell themselves, tell their own bios, speak about themselves, give you their own introductions. Why? Because we're the absolute best panelists. So thank you. Laura, go ahead.
Okay, I will go ahead. So my name is Laura Bottomley, and I'm at North Carolina State University now. I'm an electrical engineer by training. I've worked at Texas Instruments, at AT&T Bell Laboratories. I've consulted with a lot of other people too. I am now in the education sector where I teach. I also direct the Women in Engineering program at NC State University. I direct the engineering place for K-12 outreach. And by the way, we're registering for summer camps for kids ages 4 through grade 12 now. Sorry, I had to get a little ad in. And I'm also working with our brand new engineering education program for master's and PhD at NC State University. So I have fun.
Awesome, Lane. And then we'll go with Angie and then Sarah.
Awesome. Thanks, BB. And thanks to you all for joining us. Again, my name is Lane Greene. I actually work with Kinley Horn. I'm on the HR and recruiting side of things. I oversee all of our collegiate recruiting as well as summer intern programs for the firm. I have a lot of passion with working with students and young professionals, helping them to launch a career and really just helping them to discover what's going to be the next chapter in their journey that for a lot of them for the first time is completely unscripted. So through that, I've had the joy of getting to work with Laura and Angie, and also to have been really excited to get to meet BB and Sarah and serve on the panel with them today. And excited to share a little bit of my perspective from the organizational as well as recruiting side of things.
Awesome, thank you.
So hello everyone, I am Angelitha Daniel, and I currently serve in 2 roles in the College of Engineering at NC State.
My first role is special advisor to our dean for diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So that role is new to me as of October of last year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get in our conversation. And I also work alongside Dr. Laura Bottomley, and we're actually live for a high five. I work with her in terms of, she's director of our Women in Engineering program, as she shared, and I direct our Minority Engineering program. I have my degree in Material Science and Engineering from the University of Pittsburgh. And I will say between Laura and I, Laura, 23 years, I'm putting your information out there. Myself, 18 years in the college. So our passion revolves around this space of inclusion and making sure everyone is at the table. And so really excited to be a part of this conversation today. Good to see everybody here.
Hi, everyone. I am Sarah. All the excitement accidentally got me kicked off earlier and then right back in. So we're excited to be here. So my name is Sarah Brickels, and I am the Development Director at Girls Leadership Academy of Wilmington, and that's in Wilmington, North Carolina. We are an all-girls charter school, currently grades 6 through 10, eventually 6 through 12. And we work with students who have barriers in place, specifically intergenerational poverty and women of color, and working with them to achieve a mission of she will graduate, she will go to college, and she will succeed in life. So we are working with women and young girls with a very heavy STEM curriculum. So we are hopefully creating some future engineers one day, and we have a very exciting model to make sure that we are leveling the playing field for our students. But one of the kind of number one things that we like to take anything kind of away from what does our role model do, it's that we are helping our students and empowering our students to have choice in what does their career look like and what does their future look like. And we are excited because our future here is all female, and we will have our first graduating class in 2023 who will hopefully have a great portion of them attending NC State and other wonderful schools across the country. So we're excited.
Awesome, thank you. So who in the world got this wacky person named Barbara or BB, whichever you want? I've been called Brenda, I've been called Deborah, I've been called so many things. If I'll answer, sure, no problem. Just don't call me anything bad. That really hurts my feelings. But who is this wacky person they went and got for the moderator? I am Barbara Dunlap, also known as BB. I am a member of the National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE. And I also am an engineer by background, civil engineering. And I work for American Electric Power, which is the largest transmission utility provider. And I am stationed in Columbus, Ohio. It's super sunny and I'm super excited because we got rid of all the snow. And because you are in the absolute best session with the absolute best panelists, we had two, Angie and Laura, high-fiving each other. Go again, ladies. Yay! In the virtual world, who would be able to do that? And then because our workshop is so exciting, Sarah even got kicked off. What in the world is going on? Because you know why? The virtual world can't handle us. So if our bios didn't even get you excited, what will get you excited next? It's because we're gonna picture it. Sicily, 1870, I think that's what Miss Sophia said. Somebody put it in the chat. Tell me exactly what Sophia said on the Golden Girls when she wanted to tell you a story. So when it's time for storytelling, you don't need your book, you don't need pencil and paper, unless you want to take these great notes from the absolute best panelists in the world, from the absolute best workshop of this whole entire conference. We're going to go with some storytelling. So Sarah, please tell me a story.
Yes, absolutely. And so we're going to kind of talk about me for a hot second, and then we'll get to something much more exciting. So I am born and raised in Wilmington, North Carolina, and went to undergrad and got really involved in criminal justice and family community services and engaged with a child advocacy center upon graduation back in Wilmington. And so when I had that experience, I was able to, if you're not familiar with what a child advocacy center is they work with children who have experienced abuse and neglect in conjunction with Department of Social Services and law enforcement. And so I spent a lot of time looking right in the face of what does inequity in our community look like. People of color and different socioeconomic statuses are treated differently in both of those systems. And it was abundantly clear. I spent about 5 years in that field and wanted to do something different and wanted to see what I could do to change what that looks like. And so for me, that was engaging in GLOW. And GLOW is an acronym, Girls Leadership Academy of Wilmington. It's a model out of the Student Leadership Network, and it was based in East Harlem, New York. And the model boasts that the women that graduate from these schools are graduating at a rate of 96% from high school. And then when they're enrolling from high school into a college setting, they are graduating faster than their white middle class peers. And so our demographic at our school is traditionally, I'm looking at it right now, we just updated it. We are at about 450 students right now, from ages 11 to 16. About 42% of the students identify as African American and 18% identify as Hispanic, 29% identify as Caucasian, and 11% identify as more than one race. And so a lot of the work that we do around here is eliminating barriers for our students and having them have their own voice about what their future looks like. And so I kind of wanted to share with you guys really quickly a reflection of one of our students that posted on one of our walls for our girls when they started testing last week that I thought was really great about kind of empowering one another to move forward. And it says, I was somebody when I came, I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education, the science, the math I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And so that's the model that we're instilling in our girls. And hopefully, I will totally do a plug later in our presentation because I'm a development person. If you're not familiar with what development is, it's fundraising. So I will do a plug a little bit later about how you can get involved with us. But my narrative really is I saw what inequity looked like in a community that I grew up in that I'd never really had exposure to and wanted to see how do we change that and how what we're doing at GLOW, working with girls to hopefully break the pattern of intergenerational poverty, hopefully through STEM careers with our students, is going to make a difference in our community long term.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for your honesty in sharing that story, definitely from one of your young girls. She will be somebody, she will graduate, and she'll go over here and be with Dr. Bottomley and Miss Angie over at their institution. So as we try to connect the dots, Sarah is starting out because she has a lot of the undergrad before you even get to college, those high school students. So then what happens after you get to the high school? So we want to hear from our collegiate peers now about telling us a story. What makes you passionate about the DEI work that you do, that diversity, equity, inclusion work? Miss Angie, Dr. Bottomley, Miss Lane will then connect the dots for the organizational standpoint. She'll then tell you a story because we're the best storytelling group in the whole entire world. So please, Lane, Dr. Bottomley, Miss Angie, can you go and tell us a story?
Yeah, I'll jump in and I'll share. Last year for everybody was a really tough year, right? And so when you think about just the visuals of the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. For people that look like me, it was a really, really difficult time. And so in that space, in the job that I do here at NC State, everyone was looking in terms of, okay, how are we going to deal with this situation? How are we going to get everybody through it? And to be honest, it was a tough time where I just needed to step back for myself and do a check for myself. In terms of all the emotions and the anger and just disappointment that I was feeling. And so I'm thankful for Dr. Laura Bottomley because at that time, she's always been an ally, but she stepped up and she's just like, you take your time, do what you need to do. Let me, guide and support and put things in place until you're ready to kind of step back in the light. And so probably for about 2-3 weeks, I just needed that time to just check in and make sure I was okay. And so once I did that, started to, again, step back into the role of Angelitha Daniel, Director of the Minority Engineering Program. And of course, the first thought are my students, and how do you support your students during this time, especially the ones that look like me. And as I started to kind of be in this space and different people asking, can you come in and talk and, share and lay out some kind of work for us to do? How do we fix this? And as I started processing, I thought back to when I was a young girl, when I first realized that there was something different about me that people did not appreciate, nor did they want in terms of just in their space. And so the first time that I realized in terms of just racism and people just being evil, and it's just the word. My dad was, I'm a military brat. I was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And so my dad at this time was stationed in Fort Steele, Oklahoma. And so my dad, young man in the military with 4 kids, was able to purchase a home. And so we weren't on base. We were, of course, in the civilian sector. And so my dad went out jogging one evening and returned with a group of white guys in a truck. They chased him home. So when I hear the Ahmaud Arbery story, I immediately connect the story of my dad, right? And so they chased my dad home, and that evening we laid in the floor. And my dad hovered with a gun because he wasn't sure, if they would come back that evening. And so I just remember being just so afraid and like wondering what in the world is so different about us. And I was able to scan the neighborhood, and I knew that we were the only Black family in the neighborhood, right? We knew that, and people were not happy that we were there. And so from that point, we ended up actually having to move on post there. And so it was just a really tough time. And I know that was, for me, the starting point for wanting to be in this space and do everything that I can to make things better. I want to make sure that people can show up as their authentic selves and be appreciated for difference, right? Because difference is what really is, it makes up great solutions to the problems that played our role. So that's kind of like my long story, but it is why I'm so passionate about this space. And I show up each and every day. And sometimes, as Dr. Bottomley and I shared last week, it feels like we're spitting into the ocean. Like we'll have all of this success, and then something will happen and we'll go, what in the world? And so it's a lot of work, and it never ends. So I'm glad to be in this space and glad to be able to talk. And hopefully by the end of this conversation, we have some things in place that you can take back and make your space more inclusive and welcoming for all that you encounter.
My story took a different track. You might not be surprised to know, right? I'm a passionate person about engineering. I love engineering. I love the fact that everything that there is in the world has had an engineer involved in it if it was human created. So I enjoy talking about engineering. When I was, I'm going to date myself, but when I went to college in 1981 to become an electrical engineer, there were 1 woman for 12 men at Virginia Tech in the electrical engineering department. And at the time, I was kind of used to being one of few women in the science related things that I was doing. And I didn't really see a downside to it. I saw I could have a date after every class if I wanted it, didn't have to pay for my own food. I saw the upside, right? When I graduated and went out to work, though, things became a little different. And I had great experiences, but I also had a boss one time that told me that when I had children, I shouldn't be working. And I thought, well, he's my boss. That's kind of disconcerting, right? So when I got the opportunity to start the Women in Engineering program at North Carolina State University, I seized that opportunity because I want to make engineering a more welcoming place for all women, anybody that wants to be an engineer. And I haven't really thought about the intersectionality with race and ethnicity and other sorts of diversity until I became part of this family at NC State University. And I got to know Angie. And I thought, I need to become better educated about the intersectional issues. So if you're a woman, that's one thing. If you're a white woman, maybe that's different than if you're an African American woman. So let me figure that out, right? So I thought I'll do some studies. So I decided to watch a Saturday Night Live skit called Black Jeopardy, because I thought, sure, you know, it's going to teach me something. Humor often has deep truths, right? So I watched it, and it was the one with Chadwick Boseman. If you've ever watched, if you haven't, you should probably Google it. So I came back into work the next day, and I said, at this point, I already had a pretty good relationship with Angie. So I said, Angie, I got to ask you a question. How come white people can't make potato salad? And she laughed so hard, I thought she was going to fall out of her chair. And because she's who she is, she was very patient, and she explained to me the connection to the tradition of the Black church and church suppers and white people putting raisins in their potato salad or something, I don't know. Anyway, it's kicked off a very nice conversation, right? Because as a white woman, the best way to get educated is not to go ask a Black woman to educate. The best way to get educated is to go do some research. But then I have a trusted friend that I can talk to that can explain a few things to me from time to time. Oh, you were high-fiving, sorry. And then I thought, we got to make a difference, right? So at this point, I've been in my job for a little while, and we're doing programming. You know, you look around, and we're doing the same thing that other universities are doing. We've got mentoring programs, we've got bridge programs, recruitment programs, and all these things. And companies are doing these things too, because I'm talking to my colleagues there, and nothing's changing. In fact, the national average for women in undergraduate courses of study for engineering remains at 19-20%, something like that. And it's been that way for 50 years. And so suddenly it hit me, you know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I thought, we got to take a step back here, and we got to change what we're doing. And so we did that a number of years ago at NC State. We stepped back and we said, what is it about these programs that we're doing? What we're doing is we're working to change the women so that they will fit the engineering paradigm. And in fact, if you think about it, the whole pipeline metaphor is aimed at funneling people in and having them fit the engineering paradigm. That's not working. What we realized we needed to do was we needed to change the engineering paradigm. And one of the ways, as an engineer, we model everything, right? So I said, we need to change our model, because as you know, the model that you select to describe a situation dictates how you proceed to find solutions. So we changed our model. Instead of thinking of this as a pathway or a pipeline, we think of it as a garden. NC State University is a garden, and we have a diversity of seeds that we want to plant in our garden. And so we don't try to change the seeds, we change the soil. We change the conditions in which they're getting planted. Some seeds require more sun. Some seeds require more shade. Some seeds had an opportunity to build up more, I don't know, whatever the nutrients in, or see, I'm an electrical engineer, what do you want, you know? So whatever they have. So we're gonna have to give them more fertilizer when they get here, but we're not gonna change them. We're gonna change the conditions in which they're growing. And since then, we have seen a major difference. So our undergraduate class is 28% women. Our incoming first-year class, the accepted percentage for next fall is 38% women, y'all. Now, we don't know if we're going to get them all to come here, but we think it's reasonable that we will have a third women. And that will be the largest percentage of women in an undergraduate class for a large public university in the nation. Change the paradigm, change the model, change the results. So that's my story.
BB, what do you want me to do? How am I supposed to follow that, BB?
Well,
With the best panelist ever. You got
there
it.
you go. You got it. Yes. Everybody, throw it in the chat. Lang, you're the best panelist in the whole world.
Thank you.
The best workshop. Go for it. Tell us the story.
I've actually heard Laura describe that garden several times, and every time I get just covered in chills. So I'm sure some of y'all just went through that as well. My story obviously is just a little different, since a lot of what I see day to day is working with young professionals as they're entering the career, and then working through all of the transitions and changes, and working through individuals who may have been so lucky to have gone through something like GLOW and working with Sarah, or the programming at NC State with Dr. Laura and Miss Angie. But on the flip side, they're then coming into industry, which is just a whole different ballgame. And so a lot of times in our space, when DE&I comes up, especially within an organization, what I have noticed after 8 years of working in this space is that people always want to talk about recruiting. Well, the way to fix it is to go and to recruit more diverse individuals. And that makes sense, right? But I think one of the things, especially to hearing Dr. Laura speak, that I realized after several years of working in the landscape was that we were having a little bit of insanity as well, because everyone just thought, oh, we'll go to more HBCUs. Go to more MIS or minority serving institutions, support more diversity focused student groups, interact with those students. And of course, you'll recruit more, and then you'll see more diversity within your workplace, and it'll permeate through, and all the boxes are checked for all the right reasons, and everybody's happy. But I think what I realized at one point, the light went off in terms of it's a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario, which really comes first. And for me, I think I had an epiphany when one day I was going to an event at the amazing NCANT. I don't know if we have any Aggies on. And I thought on the way as I was driving from Raleigh to campus, you know what? Let me take off my privilege hat, or at least acknowledge my privilege is probably a better way of saying it. And let me spend the day trying to be very cognizant of what I might note or how I might feel walking into a place where I may be the minority for once. And, I think we'll probably all acknowledge at some point in the call that sometimes this topic can be a little tough, and you've really got to own stuff, and you've got to be vulnerable. I think that was also a day where I realized my own ignorance, because when I spent that day at A&T with a different mindset, I became, again, acutely aware of being one of the females, of being one of the minorities in that setting. And that's, again, where the chicken and the egg comes, because what do you do first? Do you go out and recruit more individuals, or do you check yourself and you make sure that the environment you're providing those individuals to potentially come into allows for equity and allows for inclusion? And so they feel as though it's an environment they could see themselves in. And at Kimley-Horn, we use the word flourishing a lot. So I'll probably say that several times. Is it an environment in which they can flourish in? And I think for me, that's when I really started to think, okay, you can't just do the recruiting efforts. It's not transactional, it's relational. You have to build the relationships, you have to lean into the space, you have to build rapport, you have to build trust, and you have to be invested. And that investment can't be led by few, it has to be led by many. And so I think, that day for me was an awakening, and certainly probably lit a fire of passion and energy for myself, which I know we'll probably talk a little bit more later on. But I think that's something that I now encourage people to do all the time. If you're ever going to be in a setting where you might be able to assume a different perspective, wear a different hat, and truly put those shoes on, I challenge people again to do it, because I think you're going to come away with such a different perception beyond what you may have heard people speak about, even just in a panel setting like this. Once you experience it yourself, the connectivity really happens. So that's a little bit of one of my stories.
Awesome, thank you. For me, it started back in a great city called Cleveland, Ohio. So growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, you would think is uber diverse. They have great cuisine and a great football team and basketball team. Yay, right? But going through K through 12, I never went to school with anyone other than a Black or African American person. I had very few teachers that were of any ethnicity other than Black. So that was my world. My family was Black, my school was Black, and it was when I went to a grocery store or something, and if my parents took me outside of our bubble, and we were in a suburb, and I would see one of my teachers that was maybe white, I would be like, oh my God, they eat, they shop, like, oh my goodness, who would have thought they eat Bob Evans just like me? They are eating pancakes. And I would rush over to the table and say, Mom, Dad, this is my teacher, and I thought that they were just, I don't know, these people that just somehow at school would just show up by osmosis and teach us, and that was it. So as I began to matriculate through school, I had a great mentor, and she said, I'm going to put you in some engineering classes. And I'm like, why? Like, send me down to Columbus State or send me to this STEM camp or anything. And I realized I really, really liked it. However, I was always the only female or the only African American. I was then outside of my bubble. But you know what? I'm still going to go. I'm going to major in engineering at the University of Toledo. And I got there day one, and it was culture shock. I was the only one in class, and that was tough. I was the only African American in my graduating class, and I have so many stories. But ultimately, it was what happened. What happened from K through 12 that I didn't get, that I had the ability to start going out and seeking friends or doing well in school. I was always an honor student. And then I got to college and everything plummeted my first year. So I said, what in the world is going on? But it was just that whole assimilation to a new world. But if I'm super shy. I know you guys can tell that, right? Super shy. On campus, I was voted most popular freshman, but you can't be most popular freshman if you're just in your group, right? So I talked to everybody, Asian people, Indian people, white people, Black people. It was like I was most popular freshman, and I was just this shy kid from Cleveland, right? So I said, okay, I started off with, various companies working in the field, and it was tough. So about 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to transition out of engineering because I loved engineering. I just wanted to keep my headphones on, keep my head down, go out in the field with my hard hat and boots on, live my life. And someone said, why don't you take over our co-op and intern program at the company? And I'm like, okay. So there was some soul searching that had to be done. I had to realize that I can be an engineer, stay in this position and grow and flourish, as my great panelist Lane would say, or I could leave the only thing that I was truly passionate about, so I thought, to go lead a bunch of collegiate students that I knew nothing about, who I thought I was old. So I got into the position, and then within 11 months, this was a few years ago, but we had double-digit diversity. We were hovering around 70%. So we're always over 50%. And it was just those little tweaks. And seeing the students come in with maybe a closed-off mindset like I had, because my world encompassed everyone that looked like me. But then they come in and they start all these great things, and we talk about great topics, tough topics. And I said, you know what? This is what I've always been passionate about from day one. So I believe everything has been God ordained in my life to say, you know what? This is why I'm here. This is why I had to go to engineering. This is why I had to go through all of that craziness, being an only individual or minority or female, because you have to have a story to tell. What is your story? Everybody has a story, and there's going to be triumph at the end if you're able to overcome, if you're able to conquer. So now I'm able to go back and talk to any other group, any individual. We recruit everywhere, and it would be my thought and hope that in this panel, throughout this panelist, throughout this workshop, that you believe, it's possible to achieve great diversity, great equity, great inclusion, because it doesn't make sense for me to go out and recruit all this talent. And like Lane said, they don't want to stay. So most of the time my phone is ringing on a Saturday, or they want to come over and hang out. And I'm okay with that because I want them to feel like we are a family. And in our organization, we are. I found a home in Nesby, the National Society of Black Engineers, whose mission is to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers who excel academically, succeed professionally, and positively impact the community. So it is amazing. Our organization is amazing. If you want to engage with us, please, get with me offline. But that for right now is my story. So we want to hear from you. So John is in our virtual world. He's part of our panel, and we're so excited that he's in the best workshop too, because he got us all together. So it's really all his credit. We're going to put up a polling question. We want to hear from you. We want to hear, how comfortable are you talking about diversity and inclusion? Is that in your company? Is that in your family, in your circle? We're talking about your organization. Come on, bring it in. The second question, how would you rate the D&I efforts at your organization? And we're going to go to a great talk show that used to come on, or game show. So, who knows what that is? Throw it in the chat. Yes, you even got a Jeopardy, a song from me. Oh my goodness, how lucky are you guys? So, as the responses have come in, it appears that usually comfortable is winning out. Yes, it is. Usually comfortable is when winning out. Now, here's my question. I want to know, if you can, throw it in the chat. Why isn't it always comfortable? What is going on that the topic and the ability to speak and talk, like we have two ears, we have one mouth, but we can really speak about these D&I efforts. How and why are you not always comfortable? What is going on, or what are some of your thoughts surrounding that? Also, the D&I at your organization. Do you think that it's some type of consideration that everything is built into when you're looking around that, or you're just doing a so-so job? So let's hear from you. If you would like to, if we can have, I will call you, and if you can unmute Meredith. If you are comfortable speaking, you can come off of mute and just give us your thoughts. That would be awesome. Interactive, guys. Interactive. We're fun. Hey.
I'm always willing to talk. I can make it up as I go along.
Awesome.
I'm a feeler to a point, and I'm always concerned that, I continued to check how many people were dialed into this and when we would start losing people. I'm always worried that other people are going to be uncomfortable, and that makes me uncomfortable.
Oh, BB, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Sheesh. See, I was trying to be respectful. Thank you so much. Did any panelists have anything to say before someone else chimes in?
I raised my hand and waved at you, Meredith. I'm an empath, so I can see a Hallmark commercial and start crying on a dime. So I certainly understand that. And I think a lot of times when I have conversations about this, I tend to start off with, I'm not an expert. I'm still learning. I have a lot of growth to do, and I may use the wrong syntax at a time, or I may try and describe something and swirl until I get there. But I appreciate us having a safe space where we can do that together. And I think that makes me more comfortable in an effort to try and make them more comfortable, and knowing where I'm coming from, and in turn, maybe influencing how they might receive it. But I'm sure some other folks might have some ideas as well.
Thank you. Chuck, did you have anything?
I just think that we have, no matter what part of diversity we're talking about, we have this opportunity that needs to be the right soil, the right sunlight, the right food. I thought that was a brilliant example. But the only thing keeping me from saying always comfortable is that We still have a few who just don't want to be part of this discussion, and their reticence, their roadblocks, their obstacles are cause a problem. And that just, so I'm usually comfortable, but it's the folks we're with.
I just want to jump in and say that I think someone shared this in the chat, that the council culture is so like severe that, you know, if you do say something and your job is on the line, I think the work that we have to do in our spaces is being able to open the floor for conversations. And it, just as Lane said, making it so that people don't feel like if I say this and it's the wrong thing, that it'll cost me my whole, and yeah, there are things that, you know, you just can't say, but if you create that space where people feel comfortable, and just as Laura shared, we've had so many different conversations about different things, but had we not worked to establish that relationship that she can come and ask those questions, or I can come and ask questions of her, there would be times that there might be some difficulty, right, for either one of us. And there have been those times where we have to pull each other and just say, hey, that's not the best way to say this, or I would say it this way the next time. We're able to teach each other in that way. And so I think that the work that has to be done now is creating safe spaces for people to have conversations and really, really be vulnerable with things that you've known all your life, right? That are embedded and it's your family. Some people are battling families now, right? You lost like family members and friendships because of what you believe. You have to be able to engage and support people regardless of where they are on the spectrum.
You know, I think also that we have to do a better job at giving each other the opportunity to grow and change. Because if I say a thing today that maybe is offensive to someone, which I hope I don't, but if I did, right, then I would hope that I would have the opportunity to realize, you know what, you need to learn and do better than that. And then tomorrow be able to do better, right? Get that opportunity. Yeah.
And I'll add to that too. My job oftentimes puts me in a very interesting position where I'm taking money from people to support this organization, and we'll be on tours and people will say some things that are racially insensitive or not coming from a place of the mission and vision of what we believe at this school. And I had to get really comfortable being uncomfortable and saying, so at this place, that's not what we believe. And, you know, that's really scary sometimes to have to say, you know, this person could be cutting a check for us that could make money or could impact the life of a student. But I have to be comfortable saying, this is what's important to our students. This is what we value in our students. We value that they're different. We value what they're going to bring to the table and what their lived experiences bring to the table. And I appreciate you coming on this tour, but I also want you to know that this is what our organizational culture looks like here and what we believe here. And so being a little uncomfortable in those places is okay, I think, and it takes a lot of practice. I will say there are sometimes it doesn't get easier. And there are some people that I work with as donors that, you know, as different, you know, administrations occur, as different social events occur, you know, we have to mitigate a lot of that conversation. And I think for us, we are an organization that is empowering our students, but also a lot of what my job is educating individuals about how amazing and how wonderful the opportunities for our young people are and what we can do to help. And, you know, and if that means you don't agree with us, unfortunately, like, I'm not going to take your check. And if you don't give to us anymore, that's okay. Please don't go give your money somewhere else, because I'm not sure who's going to, that's a whole different story, but it's a whole different, whatever you're funding. But for us, it's definitely having that conversation, and really different nonprofit organizations struggle with that no matter what your mission is having that alignment with, you know, a customer versus what's going on.
Thank you, guys. I really loved what you said about the being authentic and living in those spaces. I work for an energy provider. So when I took over our co-op and intern program, I decided to do some community outreach. So I said, well, I'm gonna just go and make my own kind of life here, and I'm gonna start interacting with students in the community and showing them about all these cool things you can do to become an electrical engineer, even though civil is still better. I know, Laura, what? But so I went out into the community, and I went to an elementary school in an underserved, underrepresented community, and I had my little shirt on. I had water bottles and gifts. So if you're thinking that you can just give something away and that'll work, nope, doesn't happen. So I went into the classroom and I said, okay, great, I'm an engineer, and you could be an engineer. And I told them where I work and all of this other kind of great stuff. And one young man, he was so impactful to me. He raised his hand and I said, sure. He said, why do you always come and turn our lights off? And I said, what? He was like, you're the company that always comes and turns our lights off. They didn't see us as an energy provider. He didn't see us as an energy provider of keeping the lights on. He's seen us as someone that turns his lights off because that was his experience with our company. So I didn't really know what to say, but I had to come back and have a really good conversation with him. So in that moment, it taught me a huge lesson that obviously everybody doesn't see everything the same way. And just because I'm Black and I'm talking to a young Black boy doesn't mean that we're going to be able to relate and he's just going to absolutely love me and gravitate towards me. He went on and did the STEM experiment that we had, but I went back and I thought about that all night long. So I started a high school workforce development program in our company. I literally took a black chalk, dry erase marker and went in and I wrote the program in like 15 minutes. I couldn't name it. Doggone it. All those people like copyrighted those great names. So I had to come up with something, and it's called Opportunities in Energy. And I said, well, how can I help these students? So I went out, and again, I'm just so excited going out into the community. I'm talking to high school students like, get into this pipeline. STEM is going to be great. And someone else came up to me and said, you're always doing something for the smart kids, because they knew NSBE and they knew that I was an engineer. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I looked at the community that needed to be served. And I started a program for students that are taking care of household bills or helping their parents taking care of household bills, or they're going to be, sleeping outside because someone got into a fight that night, or they just don't have the money to go to a four-year institution, but they still want to be an engineer. So we found a way to get them into the STEM pipeline, help them pay for their education, get them graduate, and everything was right. Everything was great. So I thought, and I went and said, I'm all about DEI, I'm all about the diversity thing. So I'm going to go out and recruit some high school students. Had a young lady that came in from Somalia. And we have a large Somalian population here. And she was a high school student that was crazy about STEM, loved it. And every time that she came in, she would talk to the men and say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't shake your hand. Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't shake your hand. Because when she started working, she was part of our cohort that came in and started. And I was like, oh my goodness, like that has to be exhausting when your company is so huge and no one knows that you can't shake a man's hand due to your religion, due to your background, due to your culture. So I asked her, would you mind educating our company and our population? She said, sure. I grabbed my collegiate students. I grabbed my high school students that all identified with that culture, with that religion. They did an amazing lunch and learn. And she took us through the history and the why. And one of my high school students said, well, I heard that you don't shower but once a week. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, where did you get that information from? So there's a lot of misinformation, but providing that space and that opportunity for the students to be able to feel safe enough to say, I only heard that you shower once a week, as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm offended by that comment. I can't believe you're that ignorant and would say that. No, we have to give these individuals a voice to say whatever it is, but also feel welcoming in that space to do it. So now we thank you guys for that and giving us some feedback on the polling. of our 2 poll questions. There's some more coming up, so keep your little digits ready. Exercise them out. Exercise them out. We're so excited that you're in our session. So now I want to ask Angie, we want to go to something called What's the Problem? Because obviously everyone didn't say always comfortable. Everyone didn't say that D&I is built into everything they do. So Angie, Ms. Laura, can you talk to us about what is the problem? Because we have these companies out here all scrambling to do these D&I initiatives. Some are doing it well, some are not doing it as well as others. And they're here maybe in the session that want to hear. They're starting these campaigns. They have all these investigations and they want to know, okay, we're doing this, but what truly is the problem? Is it at Lane and I's level where it's recruiting and hiring practices, or is it maybe some pay issues that the company can do better? Is it some of those unconscious biases that we may have, or do we really address those head-on, I guess, topics as far as race and ethnicity, sexual orientation? So can you tell us what is the problem? And I guess where's this multi-layer coming in from?
So really, the problem, and we've already scratched the surface. The problem is, I don't care what space you're in, the environment has to be conducive for people to be authentic, to be able to show up, and whether it's a student to go to class, whether it's with Lane, a young professional coming in to do a job as a incoming or entry-level engineer, you have to create spaces that people feel comfortable in being who they are. Right. And so if you're ever in this space where people can't, flourish and thrive and do those things, we're always going to have the issues that we have at hand. Right. The needle hasn't moved much for a lot of our spaces. And so until we can have those authentic conversations about what do we have to do to change the environment. Right. Laura and I, we do all these wonderful programs here at NC State. And students feel comfortable in our space, but the minute they go into a department or a class and they have a horrible interaction with a professor, right? And then they come back and they notify us, then we have to do work, right? We have to make sure that that environment is conducive and supportive of them. And the thing is it is multi-layered. We have to have all of these different things in play to be able to support, because just think of the student, if we weren't here, they would have nowhere to come and actually be able to say, hey, this is the issue that I'm having. Can you, give me support in terms of how I handle it? And a lot of the times it's Laura and I showing up and, sending an email for a meeting with a professor, right? And so we do a lot of that. And we always say we love getting into good trouble. You have to be willing to speak up and speak out. And sometimes it is uncomfortable, right? Depending on what the situation is, you want to just step away from it. I don't want to have any part of it. It's uncomfortable, but we need voices to be courageous in these times, to speak up and speak out when things are not like they should be, right? And it is, I don't care if I'm out grocery shopping. Today I have on my suit and, I cleaned up for you all. I think I cleaned up really well today. But when I go to Target and I have my cap on, somebody's following me through the store. Right. And I'm thinking to myself, I can buy everything in this Target. And to have somebody following me is beyond. Right. And so there are so many different things that go on in our spaces, and it's every day. And you have to acknowledge that those type of things happen. And as people show up in your spaces, they're dealing with a lot of things. And so if you don't have an environment that embraces that, we're going to always be in this place where we're not going to feel like the needle is ever going to move. The only way it's going to move is creating a better space.
In engineering specific, sorry, Baby, did you want to build on that before I say, okay. So engineering specific wise, I think a lot of times, I know I hear this on campus, so I don't think it's a great leap to say that this might be something that one hears at y'all's institutions as well. There's no problem. Engineering is objective. Science is objective. This mathematics is objective. This has nothing to do with anything. That diversity is not an issue. It doesn't even matter who's doing the work. Well, on the face of it, I find that problematic. But I think probably if we think about it, there are a lot of us that would buy into that until your child is doing school at home. on Zoom. They're taking a test, and so they use a respondus system to monitor whether they're cheating on the test. And the respondus system doesn't allow them to log on because the facial recognition that it uses doesn't recognize dark faces. Whoever programmed that facial recognition system was not thinking that faces come in different hues. Facial recognition systems or a airbag in a car that doesn't recognize the fact that women are statistically on average shorter than men, and design an airbag system that decapitates a woman who has the temerity to drive a car. Engineering is not objective. Science is not objective. Ask the relatives of Henrietta Lacks. We have to realize that we do show up with our whole selves. And so we might as well work to be authentic. We might as well work to share our whole selves with each other, because after all, at the end of the day, we're going to come up with better engineering solutions if we do that. In fact, we've got data. Our business school here has data that shows that a company that pays good attention to the authentic selves of their employees makes more money in a given year. Isn't that what we are motivated by in a capitalist system anyway?
And those companies are doing things to make sure the environment is productive and conducive to their employees being successful. So yeah, and I sit here and I'm laughing and chuckling under it, because the things that she just mentioned is stuff that we're dealing with right now, that students we're in this online environment. They have to log in to take exams. The system doesn't recognize, or if you go to put your head down, it's assumed you're cheating, right? And so you have students that can take this and internalize it, right? I'm basically accused of being a criminal before I even sit down to take the exam. So then we have to go back and have a discussion with the physics department or the chemistry department on not only the platform, but how students in our spaces feel about how you are policing them, so to speak, in terms of this testing environment. It's just assumed that everybody is cheating. And isn't that horrible, just to come into a situation just be like, oh, I'm automatically accused of cheating, right? And so for our different, populations, it registers different. And that's our job to go in and have conversations to make things better.
Thank you. Jorge, I love what you put in the chat. Do you mind sharing about your exposure to D&I early and how you traveled around the world? Can you kind of speak directly to that information you put in the chat?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it. This is, like I said, this is a great discussion. I really appreciate what all the people on here are talking about. Yeah, my family's actually from Mexico, so, I'm a minority anyway, but I almost never even thought about it. I think places where I lived or places I visited, when you get that exposure early, I think it makes it fun. You get, like I said in the chat, you kind of get to know that people are the same no matter what at the end of the day. Now, we all have cultural differences, and that's what does make it fun. And I think, talking to people about their experiences and where they come from, that's always really entertaining. I can tell you, in my last place of work, very diverse. I think just because of the nature of the city where I was in Austin, Texas. Texas is a state that has people moving there from everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I work with people that was one of the few places that I've worked where I had people from all over the place. I had people from Bangladesh and India and Latin America and Kenya. And so it was this great exposure. But, when you get together and you just laugh about things, like the Kenyan, our Kenyan colleague used to tell us this story about how he went out one time and he went drinking and some people overheard him and asked him where he was from. And he said, Kenya. And their first, thought was, oh, the African lions and this, this kind of savanna. And they asked him all these kind of questions. They were, so did you grow up with lions and tigers and all these kind of, even animals that don't even live in that sort of environment? But he played it all out. He said, yeah, you know, I have a pet lion that walks through my house. You know, they have giraffes everywhere. And these guys ended up buying them all these drinks. So they use it to their advantage, but we always got a kick out of it because they were just the stories that make you laugh, right? You just have fun around people and understanding that you all laugh about the same things, or this kind of cultural stereotype. And sometimes, I mean, it's a tough discussion, like you said, but sometimes those cultural stereotypes, sometimes they break ice, you know, a little bit. Sometimes they can be, you know, people will talk to me about things in Mexico, or I grew up most of my life in Arizona, and I remember people asking me, you still have horses and carts and buggies, you know, when I was in college. And I'm thinking, you know, and I'm in the college in the 80s and 90s, I'm thinking, oh yeah, and we have gunfights in the streets all day long, you know? Like, no, it's not like that, but it's fun. It makes you laugh a little bit and think, okay, let me teach you something. So it's kind of like what you're saying. We're teaching people about where we come from. But like I said, I had the exposure to, you know, traveling to Europe, traveling to Latin America, traveling to Asia, and just having fun doing it. And so again, I think that exposure allowed me, I've been asked in different places where I've worked, like, how do you know so much about, say, people from India or people from wherever? And I'm like, because A, I love learning about new cultures. B, one of my things that I did was learn languages. And so when you expose yourself that way, I think that you open yourself up to all these sort of, you know, everything that occurs in the world. And so it was really a good thing for me to be exposed that early, I think. And I love it. I mean, I love talking to people. That's really, at the end of the day, I love relationships, you know. Yes, I see you culturally, ethnically, religiously different than me, but when we all connect and laugh and have a drink, or, you know, even if you drink a soda and I drink a beer, because maybe that's a religious thing, I don't care, we're having a good time. So let's keep having a good time, and let's talk about where we're heading, what we can do together. And then you do kind of open up those lines about what's different in the country that you can address with, you know, you can address a little bit easier, right? So those make those difficult conversations that people want to have a little bit easier, because now you understand more about them. So that's just my perspective. I said, I love talking to everybody.
Awesome. We can take it offline because I would love to hear more. Definitely. One of the proudest moments I had when I took over the program, I wanted to be more inclusive. I seen someone put something else in the chat about students with disabilities and or individuals with disabilities and the LGBTQ population. So I was standing at a career fair one time, which I don't do those much anymore because we found super innovative ways to engage with the universities and be on campus outside of the career fair. But I was standing there at the career fair one day, and a student came up to me and was like, hey, you know, I'm a lesbian, I'm Black, I'm female, and I'm an engineering student. I want to work for your company. And I said, okay, like, welcome, you know. How did you hear about us? So one of the things that was one of the largest compliments is when you create those spaces that people feel comfortable enough to say that. I had not met this individual before, ever, and she was amazing. She worked for us. She even invited me. She was proposing to her then girlfriend, but now fiance, and she said, you have to come. So I'm there in the space with her family, her girlfriend's family, her future fiance's family, and everybody's like, who are you? And I'm like, I just work for her, you know, or she just works with me, or, you know, we're just at the same company. And they're like, how did you get here? This is so personal. But the fact is, she wanted people from her extended family, which is the organization that she was a part of, to attend that. And we have great relationships now, you know, or individuals that come up with some type of disability, and they say, you know, I heard that you were welcoming because you do unique and innovative things at your company for the student population. And it's not just to get them there. It's not like I'm dangling this carrot, like I'm just going to pay you $1 million a year. Come on and be a co-op or intern. It's because we wanted them to feel as if they had some sense of ownership in all of this. So I want to make sure that your questions are being answered, or that we're addressing everything it is that you may have a question about. So again, please feel free to put that in the chat. Now we're going to switch a little bit to the organizational shift and talk with Miss Lane and have her give you some insights on diversity in the workplace. And when we talk about that, what does that mean? What are some of those challenges and what can be some of the benefits? And we don't want that, you know, the cookie cutter answer of, oh, you know, we'll have inclusive thought, or oh, we'll have this, or oh, we'll have that. We really want to hear, what are your challenges and what can be some of those benefits? Please, please, please place that in the chat as our other amazing panelist, Lane, kind of takes over and talks about this from an organizational standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, BB. So as you can see up on the slide, I'll say it for you. Organizational diversity in the workplace refers to the total makeup of the employee workforce and the amount of diversity included. So essentially, it's just how diverse is your organization. And if I had to guess, you probably dialed into this session for one of two reasons. You're either personally passionate about DE&I, or you're hopeful that your organization will become more diverse, because let's call a spade in our safe space here. Our industry is not necessarily known for being the most diverse historically. Or you may be like me, and I would say and assume BB as well, that maybe you're personally passionate as well as professionally hopeful, and you check both boxes. And I think with that in mind, one of the first things we have to acknowledge is a really large misconception when it comes to organizational diversity. When I am speaking with people professionally, or even interacting with individuals socially, and diversity comes up, that misconception that I'm always kind of grimacing over a little bit is people always bring up two specific classes. They want to talk about ethnicity or race, or they want to talk about gender. And we've already had in the chat, or other presenters have already spoken to, that there are just so many other types of diversity. Physical and or cognitive ability, or protected disability, not just gender, but gender identity, sexual orientation, diversity of thought, veteran status, social beliefs, political beliefs. I mean, there's so many things that could potentially lead to you having an organization that's a little bit more of a melting pot. And to me, since this topic is DE&I, that's where organizational diversity can meet inclusion, because to me, inclusion happens when the work environment is such that all individuals feel like they are treated fairly, respectfully, and that they have equal access to opportunities and resources. And inclusion is what brings that diversity to life in the workplace. And so I wanted to mention that. Also, too, we had a partner at Kimley Horn, the late, great Mark Dunzo. I'm sure that some of you in this ITS community recall him, and his memory lives on with y'all. He used to always say that diversity is getting invited to the party, but inclusion is getting asked to dance. And that is something that always stuck with me, and I've heard other colleagues repeat. And so I think when you really think about that intersection of diversity and inclusion from an organizational standpoint, and when you think of that party example, getting invited, and then on top of that, being asked to dance, you kind of have to think about the fact that in history, and even studies have shown, that most of the time we tend to socialize in homogeneous circles. So with people who look and talk, act like us, have similar backgrounds, similar socioeconomic backgrounds. So when you change out that party guest list and you bring in more diversity, and you're trying to keep everybody feeling comfortable with that inclusion, you've got to be cognitive of and thoughtful about some of the challenges that could come from that, or maybe just some of the things that you have to work through as you grow through that. And so previously on the screen, there are a couple of challenges that were called out. I'll read through them, and then I thought it might be helpful to just give you an example of each, so that you can kind of connect the dots a little bit, but certainly the other panelists jump in if you have others to add. So language and communication. Oh, thanks, John. So different challenges that might come as you work to diversify your organization might include language and communication, cultural perspectives, beliefs and opinions, myth, and then authenticity. So starting at the top with language and communication, it's really easy to fall into the trap of solely thinking, especially here, about communication from the standpoint of native English speakers versus non-native English speakers. But there can be so much more to language and communication. Research has shown us that communication differences are present between male and females, or individuals who identify, also between cultures, For instance, professionals from Asian countries such as Vietnam or Japan may feel way less comfortable speaking up and sharing ideas, especially if they are a newer team member or more junior team member. That's just a cultural instance for them. Conversely, more assertive colleagues from the US or Western known cultures might dominate communications. So in your organization, do you pause and go out of your way to invite someone to contribute to the conversation if they haven't contributed thus far? Those can be some different examples within language and communication. I'll pause really quick. Does anybody else on the panel have one that they'd share for language and communication? Oh, I think y'all are muted, Angie and Laura.
No, you did a good job, Lane. You're good.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we'll move on to cultural perspectives. So this is one that when the panel was previously discussing before today, it came up and we all started nodding. In certain cultures, natural hair or facial hair is important. It's personal. It's even considered sacred. And so if you have employee policies or a handbook that states neatly kept hair or clean shaven, then you're not necessarily recognizing those employees and their culture and potentially even religion, which we'll get to in a moment. And you're certainly not necessarily considering how to create that environment for it to be conducive for new future teammates to join. So that would be something, an example of the cultural perspective. Pivoting over to beliefs and opinions, when I hear the word belief, I always think religious beliefs. Maybe that's just me and my social construct. But I think it's a really great example within this topic. When you're planning meetings, whether they're internal or external, do you consult a cultural calendar, especially if it's a large meeting with a lot of unknown entities, to ensure that you're scheduling that really important meeting at a time that's not going to potentially interfere with a date that someone else may be off or honoring a religious holiday? Do you consider Ramadan, a month of fasting and prayer that's coming up in April, or is that always when you hold your annual chili cook-off? Do you set holidays that are inclusive to all religions and maybe even provide floating holidays? Or do you recognize the holidays associated with a predominant and majority-driven religion? So those are some examples under the belief. On the opinion side, I tend to always think of politics when I think of opinions. Again, might just be a construct for me. And I certainly won't want to open a can of worms here today. We've got enough that we're working through. But I'd simply ask, do you think everyone within your organization, regardless of their political views, feels welcome and comfortable? Or do you think you may have had someone who this past year, in the climate of this past year, felt uncomfortable and maybe like they were an outlier for their political views, whereas everyone else was very outwardly rallied around and expressing and bonding over their own? And then myths. Myths was one that I thought a lot about, and I'll have to get on a small little soapbox. There's so many myths within DE&I, but I think the one that I wanted to touch on today is that it's HR's responsibility. At a lot of organizations, DE&I is led. A lot of times the initiatives are maybe led or organized, or they're propelled by partners in human resources or maybe leadership positions or other areas of the organization. But it has to be a group effort. Kind of going back to what I shared in the beginning, you can't just go out and recruit and put all of your energy into recruiting and think that it's going to dramatically change. It has to be a universally supported idea that everyone rallies around and gets behind. I sometimes compare it to Finding Nemo. I'm sure we've got some parents on the line, or you're like me and you don't have kids, but you just think it's a cute movie. When they get caught in the net and all of the fish start chanting like swim down, because they're all working together, they're able to break the net and they're able to get everyone free. But if it was just Dory and Nemo swimming down, you wouldn't have seen any changes. Just like if you rely on just the few people you maybe have in a support function to try and lead these revolutionary changes within an organization, you're not going to see that net budge. And then finally, with authenticity, I think you have to constantly check yourself that you're doing it for the right reasons. I think Angie alluded to earlier that a lot of organizations have started to really look inwardly at their DE&I approaches over the past year. which is great that there's been a catalyst, period. I think all of us who are passionate about it recognize that that movement was needed and necessary, and hate that it came at the expense that it came from, but it's great that the conversation is flowing. But is it flowing for the right reasons? Are people doing it so that they can be judged positively in the court of public opinion? Or are they doing it because they see that through DE&I efforts, they could have amazing business benefits that impact the bottom line? So with that being said, unless any of the other panelists have any examples they'd add to the challenges, I know that we certainly wanted to focus on all of the amazing benefits. And if y'all have any to add into the chat, go ahead and start adding them in. But for the other panelists, anything y'all would add just in terms of perspectives on the challenges?
You know, I'm so glad you said that. I did think of something, but okay, so my students think I'm old. Who would have thought, right? So I'm thinking I'm cool, I'm hip. And then first of all, they said, you don't even say those words anymore, like cool and hip. Or, you know, I was going to watch the Grammys, but I had no idea who those people were. So I just didn't watch it. So I thought about that, and some students came up one day, and I give the opportunity in our co-op and intern program for them to take a lot of ownership into that. And I kind of stepped back, and I was talking to one of the students one day, and they said, "Oh, that's lit." And I said, "Oh, we're an energy company. Like, what lit up, you know?" And then they said, "No, like, oh my goodness, we're going to do something and that's really lit." And I said, "Oh my goodness, are you guys smoking marijuana? Like, that is illegal. We have a policy here against drug and alcohol." And they literally had to take me through like this hip class, because I was like, oh my gosh, I thought that I was cool. I thought that I was, you know, like, I'm super cool. You know, all Black people know, and that's a myth. All Black people know all this terminology. That's not true. I know nothing. So I did a session, a workshop a few weeks ago called Stop Capping Your Engineering Career. So when they said capping, I'm, you know, another kind of generation there. I thought you were going to kill them. And they're like, no, that means it's fake. Like if you're capping something. And I said, oh my goodness, there are so many other differences. I know we are highlighting race and gender, but I am now a certified generational fluency trainer. So now I realize that generational fluency within an organization can definitely do wonders for your organization. Because if one of my students says something is lit to an employee that was, you know, I think, you know, have been there for 30 or 40 years, they might think, oh my goodness, they might think like me, maybe you're smoking marijuana, or maybe something that's going to be energized. Like, then we get all excited. And so I really want to challenge you all to think about generational fluency. It has really transformed our organization. And as a trainer, I see so many different light bulbs go up, like, oh my goodness, I never thought about generational fluency. So that's something I definitely want to highlight, is ensuring that you are speaking to all the generations and you're respecting those older generations for their knowledge and their wisdom, that they have laid the foundation and the path for these young people to come in. So generationally, and then I want to also talk about, I know Lane brought something up, when it for me, is the marital status. That is a form of diversity. So when you're going into the meeting and you're all talking about husbands or wives or your children, that can be a diversity topic that can make other individuals feel uncomfortable. I per se don't. Hey, I was a big disappointment to my parents. Okay, I didn't get married, you know, so sorry to tell them, my mom and dad, as much as you prayed, it just, that just wasn't my path. So far, hey, who knows? You know, somebody might be in no session, you know, we might turn, that's a whole nother session. This is not matchmaking. But anyhow, it is very interesting for me, because if I go into a session, I can't schedule my meeting at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Because a mom or a dad may be getting their children ready for school, an elderly parent ready for, you know, their day, or, you know, I can't schedule a 4 o'clock meeting when it's basketball season or baseball season or golf, or someone might have karate. I have to be very conscious of what I'm doing for my team to ensure that I am inclusive of everyone. But on the flip side, it can't be, oh, Barbara always travel, or BB, go ahead and you travel because you don't have any kids and you're not married. That isn't fair to me either. So taking into account, I mean, I have literally lived out of a suitcase for a long time, and everybody's like, you have the most wonderful thing. Try being in the airport stuck for 12 hours and all that other kind of stuff, and you're dragging your suitcase. So there are some things that within organizations that we're always thinking race and gender, but I challenge you to have expand your view, expand your thoughts, that maybe it could be a generational fluency kind of problem or issue, or something that can be solved through that, or through dispelling those myths. All Black people don't speak, Ebonics. Some people speak the King's English. You never know. But as much as I may have to shift we all interact with our families differently than we interact with individuals at work. Some of us may do, some of us may not. Some of us might be able to be our authentic selves. But now, speaking to that generation, the younger generation, the collegiate generation, I'm able to say, oh my goodness, maybe I don't know who these people are on the Grammys. I'm sorry. So when I'm listening to the music and I'm trying to get there, that's a way for us all to kind of meet in the middle and find some type of commonality. We have more similarities than we do differences. Really, we do. And my students have really taught me that. So as Lane was saying, what are some of the benefits? What are some of the things or some of the challenges that you had? Please, please, please throw them in the chat. Or if you feel compelled and you just want to speak to one of our absolute greatest panelists in the whole world, please feel free to unmute yourself. I know that might be a little unorthodox, but we really want to make this organic and authentic, and we want it to be interactive. So I'll give you 2 seconds. Awesome. So Lane, did you want to continue? I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, sure. I can certainly fill in and provide a few examples, and then hopefully maybe we'll get some additional ones in the chat, maybe get some brave souls to go unmuted. So I netted out a little bit of a list, so a variety of different perspectives, faster problem solving because of that variety of different perspective, increased creativity, better decision making, higher employee engagement, reduced employee turnover, a better company or organizational reputation, improved hiring results, a stronger relation to the community that you serve, increased credibility to your work products, and of course, increased profits. That's been research and statistics back that the more diverse your organization, it does, as we've noted several times, hit the bottom line. Anybody have any other ones that they'd add? I created just a short list, but would love some additions.
Lane, can I go back to something else you said that I definitely want to highlight? California passed the bill about natural hair. That is huge. Huge.
When you say natural hair.
Yeah, that would be a good, I didn't define.
So when we're speaking natural hair, we're speaking of textures that are our natural state. They haven't been processed. They haven't been utilized any type of unnatural products. They're able to be if it's tight, if it's curly, if it's kinky, whatever the word is. But I've heard so many people say, we don't want that nappy hair. Not in my organization, but oh my goodness, that's just that's nappy. Or we don't really like dreads. Or we're not okay with our locks. And these are things we should have put up pictures or something. But taking into account natural hair is huge, because a student may show up in an interview, or an individual may show up in your organization, or you feel the need to press your hair or do everything so that I will wear braid. You'll see something different on me tomorrow. You'll see something different on me probably in a couple minutes, but I will wear braids or anything like that. And for years, I need you to talk to my face, my eyes, and not my hair. Like, no, you can't touch it. That's a big thing. Don't touch it. So, yes, please.
I have to share one of the original conversations that Laura and I had is coming in, and I think I had shared one day that I was getting my hair permed that weekend, And she was like, you're getting your hair permanent. So we end up having this discussion again on natural versus processed hair. And I just remember the questions that she asked and trying to understand. She's like, well, when I perm my hair, it's straight. When you perm your hair, or when I perm my hair, it's curly. When you perm your hair, it's straight. And so once she went back and did all of the research to it, I was blown away when I got to hear Dr. Bottomley talk to a group of Black girls about natural versus permed, hair. And so she was able to connect with them in a different way because of that understanding. And so
I learned there are 4 types of hair. And the reason that my hair is whatever this is versus Angie's hair is whatever that is, it has to do with hydrogen bonding in the shafts. And so when you do chemical perms, you're breaking hydrogen bonds. And so it's actually physically damaging your hair. If you get all into it, it's really cool.
And if you really want to learn about natural hair, Chris Rock did a special, and I'm blanking on the title of it, but it's something Black hair.
Are you talking about the documentary?
Yes. It's a great
Hair Love?
Well, Hair Love is the book.
Oh, okay.
Good hair. It's good hair.
Hair.
Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Dominique. See, that chat feature is lit. Go right on ahead.
Baby, I love you. But no, watch Good Hair. It is a wonderful, wonderful teaching of natural hair for Black people. It really is.
Awesome. So did anybody, we didn't see any names come in the chat. If you wanted to, you can just go in. Amanda, I'm not sure if you want to come up off of mute and say something. We do have a little less than 30 minutes and we wanted to make sure that we gave you the opportunity to have your say and make sure we covered everything. But if you want us to do a natural hair workshop, we can do that because we're the absolute best panelists. So if anybody needs any other additional resources, we're here. We'll have some contact information at the end if you would like to talk to us, or if you would say, hey, I'm never going to attend their workshop again, which you wouldn't say. But now it is time. I'm sorry, Lane, were you done or did you have some more?
Yeah, those were all the notes that I had made. So
Okay.
hopefully there were some nuggets in there.
Awesome. So now it's time for you guys to come back on and get on this poll. The poll is lit now. Come on, bring it on up, John. What is next? I trust my organization to be fair to all employees. If I raise the concern about discrimination, I am confident my employer would do what is right. And the people I work with treat each other with respect. Anybody want to go with the Jeopardy music this time? Just sing it in your head. We'll give you guys a chance. It's only like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 35 seconds in. So if we could hear from you, Miss Laura and Miss Angie, on this poll, that would be great. Sarah, we want to definitely hear about from the student perspective, what are they looking for if they're saying, I trust my organization to be fair to all employees? They may not say it in that language, but they may want to go into a workplace that is truly, you know, as the kids say, keep it real. Or what's the other one, Angie? Help me out.
You said keep it real. What is the other term?
Out in the chat. Woke. That's it. One of the students said to me, I was woke. And I was like, yes, I got up this morning. And they were like, no. So now when we have an Instagram and a Facebook and all of this stuff for our students, I don't manage it, but my name is all on it. And I feel so woke, but I'm not. Maybe I'm using that in the wrong context too, but generational fluency is huge again at my company. I am a certified trainer and I am learning. I am open to it. So I trust my organization to be fair to all employees. Anybody we had about 75% that said that is great. The no's, throw some things in the chat. You don't have to out yourself or your organization or anything like that, but why do you feel as if maybe it may be a no? And Sarah, I definitely want you to weigh in here on what do you think students are looking for when they're coming out of environments such as your wonderful high school into coming into another space.
Yeah, so absolutely. What we do on our campus is we build a college going culture to be like hip. Also, nothing will humble you more than I do the current carpool line and I compliment our students and they humble me quickly. I'll be like, I really like that outfit. They're like, thanks. So they keep you humble. But one of the things that we do really, really early is we normalize college. We create a college going culture on our campus to make sure that our students know that we believe that they have the ability to attend college if they think that is something that's in their path. Some of our students will not go to a 4-year institution. We know that. We'll go to a 2-year institution, but again, creating the opportunity for choice in our community. And so creating that college bound culture for us is around a series of things. So we do trips to college campuses starting in 6th grade. So some of those trips are just to make sure that our students are feeling comfortable on a campus. A lot of our students have never been on a college campus. Some of their parents, a majority of them are not alumni of institutions that they can go tour or visit and go to a basketball game or what have you. So normalizing that experience for them, but also creating not just an experience for our students, but for their caregivers. So we function in this modality called whole girl education. And whole girl education looks at not only the academic health of students, but the socio-emotional health of students. And so with that being said, we are preparing our students 6th through 12th grade to be successful in college, so that when they get to college, they're not overwhelmed by what that experience looks like in case people on campus don't look like them or they're far away from campus. We do know that a lot of our students will go to college for free, just due to their sheer socioeconomic status. And we want to be able to get them there. And so we build a lot of confidence on our students. And one of the things we're most excited about is when we get to that first graduating class in 2023, our work doesn't end there. We provide opportunity for alumni. So that's networking, but also the opportunities to still engage with our college bound community here. So we have a college bound team of 2 individuals on our site. It will probably be up to 3 when we're fully going, that are not only working preparing our students to go to college, but preparing universities for our students, because our students are unique and they have different needs. We spend a lot of time eliminating barriers for our students on campus. So that's transportation, food, things like that, and making sure that when our students go to college, they are as prepared as possible. And so I will say that one of the things that we do on our campus, and one of kind of my little asks that we have, is we have this program called Cool Women Hot Jobs that we do every year. So sorry, gentlemen in the group. But we do like to showcase women that have really interesting jobs. You may not think they're interesting, but our students certainly do. And how they got to that career path. So exposing our students to different jobs on our campus. We do have a STEM lab on site. So we are also hosting what we call learning circles that are STEM associated for not just our students, but for rising 4th and 5th graders in our community. If they choose to come here, it is a recruiting tool for us, but always looking for partners in that as well. But if they don't, they're still free for them to come to the community, and we've been running those safely during COVID. If you're a part of an institution, we are doing virtual trips right now with our college students, or with our high school students, but we'll transition those to on campus again. Our current 10th graders have gone to 10 different institutions since they have started with us. And so we do a lot of kind of circling around when they're close. So when they were in DC, they attended a couple different universities there, Howard included, but also some other ones. So we make sure that our students have the support that they need. Another ask that we have is we are a nonprofit organization. So public charter schools, which we are a public charter school, and I don't know if I covered this at one point, but none of our students pay for anything on our campus. We ask them to do uniforms, but that's it. We give them the first one, but after that, they are responsible for their own. So many of you may be parents and you get the list from your school every year that says, hey, can we have Kleenex, tissues, hand sanitizer, tons of hand sanitizer? This year, we don't ever do that with our parents. And so we just ask them to do the uniform piece. And then we also provide what we call Parent University, and that's our preparation for our parents to get into that university track. So we do generally a student portion and a parent portion, and we have dinner provided as well as childcare, because that can oftentimes be a barrier for our caregivers too. Where this one is a thrilling one that we'll be doing next year, that's already on the calendar, is completing your FAFSA, which if you haven't been walked through before is really challenging. And but also we do working with admissions counselors and things like that. And so that's obviously a need of ours. And again, we have the opportunity on our website through a donation portal. You can follow along with our students. We make it really affordable. They do a newsletter. They're in the process of me trying to stay pretty hip with our students. Just like UBB is, they'll be producing TikTok-like videos for what we call our light keepers that are kind of going to be their experiences on campus. And so we're excited about that. It was their idea. We're kind of letting them run with it, and should be something fun to follow, some good content. So hopefully that kind of answered your question. We have a lot going on here. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. And again, our contact information will be at the end of this, which is only a couple more minutes. We only have a couple more minutes to go, maybe about 15, but we will have comments there. Angie will teach you how to make potato salad if you direct message her, I'm sure. If she doesn't care, this is all about equity. So no matter who you are, where you are, if you want to make potato salad, talk to Angie. She can do that.
And mac and cheese.
Oh, yes, yes.
Mac and cheese.
Yeah, actually, Dr. B has mac and cheese on lock. And again, that's that lingo that students use.
See? You did not know when you were coming to the absolute best workshop with the absolute best panel, you were going to get cooking. We have given you terminology, generational fluency all over. So I did want to get to Ron's comment though. So Ron, if you can come off of mute and go ahead and speak to your comment, that would be great.
Sure, thank you. If I've repeated something, let me know. Because I was able to be part of your initial stories that you gave. It was exciting to listen to you, but I've had to drop in and drop out. But one of the things that helped me personally with diversity, inclusiveness issues is the mentee program that many organizations have. I've been involved over the years with many different, and still am, with many different professional organizations, engineering organizations. And so I've been part of the mentor program for many years. But what's interesting now is that the 3 current mentees that I'm working with are all 3 females, and they're all 3 engineers. So naturally, our conversations during the past several weeks have been, how does a young female, whether it's a student or whether it's a young professional, get involved in a male-dominated profession? Of course, over the past 10, 15, 20 years, it's been changing gradually. But one of the things that we've been doing, and what has helped me a lot, is just to talk about some of these various issues. And it's something that if I were to, I would probably not stand in front of a group and talk about these things, but to do it one-on-one with an individual that I've already been comfortable with is very easy for me to help develop my own relationship, my understanding of various different ways of getting involved with diversity, inclusiveness, and it's helped me. And I know that a lot of organizations do have the mentee mentor programs, and if they were to at least encourage their people to do it more, it would help, I think, one aspect of just bridging this whole issue that we've been talking about here this afternoon.
Thank you, Ron, for that. I want to speak directly to that. I have a student, and I asked her for permission, Angelitha, so I can use her name. So Angelitha was an African-American female from Columbus, Ohio, going to the Ohio State University. And when I sent her on her work internship or co-op experience, I sent her to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Tulsa, Oklahoma's office isn't as diverse as our Ohio office. However, I matched her up with a mentor, and her mentor was a man named Kip. And Kip and her, he was an older white gentleman, been with the company many, many years, and she became more like his daughter. But I didn't know that. So they came back into town during her her internship, and they came over to my desk and they were just talking and chatting. And I said, well, Kip, I'll give you a jacket, for your thank you for being a great mentor. And she said, well, I stay cold in the office. I want the jacket. He was like, oh, put your lip in. I don't care anything about your lip. I have teenage daughters. And unbeknownst to me, like when they greet each other, they hug each other. They just really embraced each other. And I was like, wait a minute. This goes against what everyone says about matching up a mentor and a mentee. Like, you're an older white man. Like, what in the world? Do you know what, lit means or something like that? What is going on? But she was saying that his knowledge was so diverse, and he was able to treat her like, you're one of our kids. Like, you can pout all you want to. However, that's not going to get you this jacket, but I will teach you engineering. And the way he just kind of embraced her as a person. She's from Columbus, Ohio, like she's at the Ohio State. And she said, when you put me in a full-time role, I want to go and be where he is. So she packed up, moved everything. I'm bawling, like super crying, like, you're leaving me. It's about me. And she's like, no, it's like really about Kip. And I was like, okay, well, fine. That's okay. So when I see how organic their relationship was, I'm all over it. Like, Kip, what did you do? And he was like, I just mentored her. But what does that mean? So we'll have to have another whole session on effective mentors. And there is some actions that she had to do to be an effective mentee. So their relationship was super organic. So I don't look at race when I look at mentor mentee all the time. I give you so many different types of mentors. I may give you a social mentor. I may give you a technical mentor. I may give you a shepherd that'll help you look over. So I really appreciate your comment on that. Laura, did you have anything to add? And then we're going to put up our now what?
No, I'm just adding in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. The chat is somebody else put in the chat slapped. I had to figure that out. So now I use that, but I think it's old. Like, oh my goodness, that hamburger slapped. And my mother was like, if you touch me, I will choke you. And I said, oh no, Mom, that's like my new terminology. So when I use it with my parents now, it is so super crazy. Generational fluency, guys, generational fluency. So now what? John, are you able to bring up the now what? I know we heard from Sarah on her now what, if you have anything to add, but we cannot leave this panel without hearing something amazing about NC State programs and any type of additional organizational recommendations from you, Lane. And most of all, whose voice is missing out of this conversation? If we didn't have it, go ahead and throw it in the chat, because we want to know one thing you will do when you go back to your organization and own this workshop. On us from the greatest panelists, the best workshop in the whole world. Go ahead and let's hear about NC State wonderful programs, because you guys are wonderful.
Yeah, so we have different programs at NC State. For example, when our students start here, they are in engineering, but they're not in a particular engineering department, right? So they come in just general engineering. And so during their first year, they're supposed to learn about the different departments and choose which one to go to, et cetera, et cetera. It may be no surprise to you that it varies widely across the departments as to how welcoming they portray themselves. And there's also the back channel of the gossip about, which department likes, et cetera, type person or whatever. And so one of the things that we've done to help show the welcomingness, I guess, I'm making up words now. It's not even Friday afternoon. I'm already tired, but is an event that we're having tomorrow night called Taste of Engineering. If it were in person, this would be in person. We're doing it online. So what we've done is we have mailed a box of candy to the students, to 200 students that are going to be participating. And all of the departments and people like the library and the Career Center are going to be online. And they're going to conduct workshops on why their department is like that piece of candy that the students have. So industrial engineering, for example, has, they sent left Twix and right Twix. And they're going to explain to the students what that has to do with industrial engineering. Mechanical sent Pez dispensers. So they're going to explain why it has. Now, somebody asked me one time, because we would do this in person, and so some people would serve layer cake, some dry ice punch, etc. They asked me why I had a carnival when students were supposed to be learning serious things about engineering. And the answer to the question is, yeah, engineering's serious, but we shouldn't take it so seriously. Because when we sort of put up this wall, students perceive that as not welcoming. But it's really hard to find somebody not welcoming when they're putting their hand on a piece of layer cake and showing you how the icing acts as a fluid layer in between two solid layers, and how that has to do with mechanical engineering, right? Boundaries are lowered, authentic conversations can be had, and students feel much more welcome. So yeah, we're putting on a carnival called Taste of Engineering, and students will be eating candy and getting a sugar high, and then they will learn about why electrical is actually the best kind of engineering that we have. We also have a leadership development program. And our leadership development program, we take students to the country of Rwanda, and we work with schools in Rwanda doing engineering activities with the kids and the teachers there. So when the pandemic hit last March, I was on the top of a mountain in the middle of a lake with a very small village that had no electricity, no running water, and we were doing engineering with those students. So that, you can jump in anytime you want to, but it shows, for one thing, it takes the students into a place where they are not in the majority anymore. And so I tell the white students, I said, you're going to be surrounded by people who have darker skin than you for probably the first time in your life. Okay.
And I'm going to jump in and just say, we've been going to Rwanda for 3 years. And so in terms of being a Black person, I was just like, oh, I get to go to Africa. This is great. And so when I get there, in terms of my skin tone, I wasn't received the way that I thought I was going to be received in the motherland, right? And so many different experiences happen when you give students, and even for yourself, the opportunity to travel. And so the one thing that I would add about our international opportunities for students is, when everything happened with COVID, we were actually gearing up to actually make our spring break trip. Initially, we were thinking that the university was going to pull it. We're not going to be able to make it because things were just getting really crazy with the number of cases that were starting to pop up. But we were able to make the trip. And I'm so glad that we were able to make the trip, because it allowed our students to see how differently a country that is not the US of A, and in their minds probably would think there's no way that they could be on top of this better than us, right? And so the minute we landed in Rwanda, we get in the airport, we come down, and they have medical professionals standing there, and they screen every single person. They're standing with their iPad, they're entering all your information, where you come from, have you been in contact with anybody, where are you gonna be while you are here? They had all of our information, right? And so it probably took us maybe 2 hours upon entering, the country, to get everybody through that medical screening. We did not go anywhere in Rwanda without them taking our temperatures, us washing our hands, and sanitizing. I don't care if you were going to the market, if we were going to our hotel. We even visited the golden monkeys. And upon approaching the golden monkeys, they stopped us, and we did a full, temperature and hand sanitizer.
And we had to put a mask on.
And we had to put right. And so we had to put on a mask. And so our entire week, and as things started to get crazy, we didn't hear from, the states that they're going to shut down some of the borders. We had to work to get a student that had a passport to what country?
He had a Korean.
He was, from Korea. So we had to actually get him home early. But when we landed in the United States, we all quickly knew we were in trouble. We had not one screening for temperature, no hand washing, nothing. And we didn't have to say it. The students were like, nobody's checking our temperature. Our check, literally, when we landed in Atlanta, someone got on a plane. They literally get on our plane and they share that they're giving us a piece of paper So literally, we fill out a piece of paper, and the first thing I'm thinking is, if you can't read my writing, right, and I have issues, or somebody on the plane has issues, how are you going to contact me, right? And so all of it was just an eye-opening experience to see how things were handled there versus how we were doing things here. And to this day, we have a group chat. We will always have a student that says, can we go back? Can you just take us back, right? And so anytime that we can expose students to different opportunities, it opens up a world of just being able to appreciate culture, right? And I just want to leave that in terms of the next step. Anything that you can do in your personal space to interact with someone that may not look like you, may not talk like you, may not have a, we talk about disabilities. There are people that have disabilities that you may not ever see, right? And so if you know of someone, or I would just say, be comfortable with being uncomfortable, saying, hey, can we talk, right? You will find that there's so many common things. When we go to Rwanda, we feel like family. We have people that we know that the minute we land, they're waiting for us, right? And we hug and we greet because we have established a relationship that's authentic, and we appreciate each other in terms of what we bring to that space. And so that's what I was here. But we do a lot of things at NC State. Dr. Beaton rattled off 3 or 4 things that she's doing. I'm in 4 different spaces, but the bottom line is we want students to be here and be comfortable. And if we do diversity well, it makes everything better for everyone. And we want to make sure all voices are heard and that everybody is at that table of opportunity, that you're there. And what I would recommend to each of you is that even when you're sitting, each and every year we do a strategic planning session. As a symbol of just what voice is missing, put a chair there.
An empty chair. An
empty chair, and put a sign on it that says, who's missing? Just so as you're going through that strategic planning, you're mindful of, okay, are these programs, are we remembering everybody that we need to remember, right? And so that's what I would leave you in terms of what is next.
Thank you. And then I know we're at 4:01, so I apologize. And Jeff is going to come on and do the raffle. But John, do you mind putting up the last slide, the poll? We have one more poll, and it's about us. I mean, because why not? So there'll be a survey that is upcoming also from the whole conference. But we really want to know honest feedback. But you do, how do I feel? No, seriously, honest feedback on was this workshop helpful in providing the content? And also, do you need us for anything else? How can you contact us? All of that other kind of stuff. So if you have any questions, we have our contact information on the next slide. And then if Jeff is here and he would like to come in and start the panel, start the raffle, you can definitely do that. And we'll keep looking at the poll there, and then our contact information will come up here shortly. But thank you all so very much for attending. And we look forward to seeing you again next time if we haven't scared y'all. Thank you.
All right, yeah, and I will do the raffle. So we got 29 people entered. Almost everybody bought multiple tickets, so we have about 73 tickets here. So I wrote all the names down. I'm gonna pull them out of this big bowl. And I won't look. So let's see here. Doug Hayes from NCDOT. I don't know if you can see that. Doug Hayes, we have your email. We'll get you the $100 Amazon.com gift card. And yeah, thank you for supporting the scholarship fund, and thanks for a great session. This was a great way to end the conference. So send it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Did anybody else need our last contact information slide? If so, we'll throw it up one more time. And if not, thank you so much. And then everybody off mute. Thank you for attending the absolute best session of the entire whole conference in the whole world with the absolute best panelists ever. We really, really thank you for attending, because you could have did anything with 2 hours out of your day, especially if you're a parent. Here I am marginalizing, right? If you're a parent, or if you're someone like me that's just single, hey, you know, that's a whole nother session again. But you could have done anything with 2 hours, and we are just ever so grateful and humbled that you decided to come to our session. So thank you so very, very much. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you all again. Thank you.